Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. This past week, I had the opportunity to sit down with some other local youth pastors from this area, and we got a chance to talk about ministry. Tonight, I'm excited to bring you part one of that discussion, so I hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone, Kevin Messer here with the Church at War Hill in Dawsonville. Tonight I have the honor of sharing the stage with some of the most influential youth pastors in the North Georgia area. Tonight we're going to be talking about all general youth ministry topics, along with what it's like to adapt our ministries during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so tonight we're going to get started. I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Chase Ray from Christ Fellowship Church in Dawsonville, Courtney Holsey from our War Hill South Campus in Winder, Mr. Ryan Roberts from the Edge Church in Gainesville, Pastor Eber Lopez from Open Heavens Church in Gainesville, and Mr. Mason Bennett from Crossbridge Community Church here in Dawsonville. And so, guys, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm really excited about this. I know that we are all within at least an hour of each other. Our campuses are, but our youth ministries are so different in the way that we do things and the way that we're having to adapt to the world around us. And so, obviously, the big thing right now is COVID-19 and how that's affecting the ministry world. And so we'll get to that at some point. But first, I just want to dive right in with some general youth ministry topics. Okay, so first of all, who is full-time ministry? Anybody full-time? Pastor Eber? Okay, so for those of you that are part-time ministry, how do you balance your full-time job with part-time ministry? Whether that be with your spouse or if you have kids at home, what is that like for you, Mason?
Yeah, so, well, first I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and speak today with you guys. It's an honor. But diving into that first question, for me, I do have a full-time job and get to serve part-time as a youth pastor. And not only do I have a full-time job, I have a full-time job where I'm in upper management. So, that really does make it tough. And it was a struggle when I first stepped into, youth ministry. Me and my wife are really just our family right now. We don't have any children. And so luckily, I get to serve with her, and it's something we get to do together. But, it really just took me taking time to, prioritize, not just, my responsibility as a youth pastor, but, just my faith in general, and saying, what's most important. So I just had to dedicate and, make sure I had time set aside where, I had time to study, I had to get in my word and realize, that, yeah, it's tough, but I understand the calling and realize that, I have to, put in effort and put in work to make it, where God's trying to take me, I guess, is in our youth ministry. So,
to kind of echo off of that, I'm also in management at my company, but I get to work from home majority of the time, which is really nice. So for me, we call it part-time youth ministry, but I don't think that youth ministry is ever part-time.
Well, I was just about to say, there's no such thing as part-time
there's
ministry
not.
except for the title itself.
Right.
I mean,
Right. I'm constantly communicating with students and leaders and that kind of thing. But like you said, just being very intentional about setting time aside for ministry and to study and prepare. And, understanding that ministry is also sacrificial. So there might be nights where I'm super tired, but I have to stay up and prepare stuff for my students, regardless of how my day went at work or whatever. Just being understanding of the fact that sometimes it's going to mean I have to put myself aside so that I can do what I need to do for them.
That's good. So. Well, Pastor Eber, you are not only the youth pastor at Open Heavens, but you're also the associate pastor as well. And so what is that like for you? I know that you have a wife and a young child at home too, so you're a busy man. You're juggling more than just one role within the church itself. So what does that look like for you?
Well, thank you for having me here. And honestly, so I've been also in the side of the picture where I used to be part-time, and then you have like a full-time outside. So I definitely, once you get an opportunity to be full-time, you definitely get to appreciate it. I'm sure you guys have had those nights. I remember having nights when I was prepping and, even spending time in prayer and falling asleep as I was spending time in prayer. We do fall asleep as we pray sometimes as pastors. And so, but so there was a point in time where God opened the door to become full-time, and it's been an incredible blessing. But I think having that dual prepare me to what I'm doing now. Yeah. So for example, even as we adjust as a church and as we are having to grow in this season, it is hard to find a balance. And so, you know, it's great because you tell everyone, oh, I'm a full-time. Oh, you're doing nothing. You're a pastor. And so, but, you know, you're having to find time with your family. And I think that the thing with ministry is that we have to learn, and I haven't figured this out yet, to disconnect. So, you know, as pastors, everything is a preaching preparation. Right. You're driving, you see a bird do something like, oh, that's a good... and so, you know, it's hard to divide your home life from ministry. And it's like, you know, I've worked outside jobs, you know. I study business and whatnot. But so it was easier to disconnect my other job. I turned off Monday through Friday. And so I think that the key is finding that balance into, you know, ministry and your relationship with God and juggling all those things. I think the key is finding rest in God. And that's what I'm challenging myself to even do in this season of my life, because and learning to delegate. I think that's sometimes hard for pastors because we do it so good ourselves that we have a hard time delegating. So this season, I would say I'm learning to delegate all this because I have been given more responsibility, which I appreciate. But at the same time, it's just learning to juggle all those things and finding the balance and knowing people will make mistakes, but you have to let them learn.
Yeah. That's good. Well, you know, we're talking about balance and how we do that. And, you know, you're talking about, you know, prepping, you know, for sermons and falling asleep. And he's right that pastors do actually fall asleep in their quiet times. But talking about that, so let's talk about sermon prep and what that looks like for you, and whether you use curriculum or do you write all of your own sermons, or because there's a lot of youth pastors out there who struggle with, because I was one of them, who struggle with being too busy to always write your own sermon versus feeling the guilt of using a curriculum making you think that you're just taking the easy way out. And so I know my opinion on that, but I'll let you guys kind of go. Like, what do you guys do? Do you write every one of your own sermons? Do you supplement with curriculum and stuff like that? Like, what does that look like for you guys, Courtney?
So I used to write all of my own sermons, but recently, as a whole organization, we switched to a more curriculum-based model using Grow Curriculum. And if y'all have not checked that out, it's awesome. The cool thing about it is it gives you a good guideline, but it's so customizable that you still feel like you're writing your own message. Like, you still get to put your thoughts and your ideas and all of that. You can take out what you want, add in what you want, and really make it yours. And so for me, that's been awesome, just to have like somewhere to start, like a baseline, and then make it my own. It definitely takes the pressure off of feeling like, what am I going to do this week? What am I going to talk about this week? And allowing us to, as an organization, kind of be streamlined so that we're all addressing the same things and on the same page with where we're taking our students. So it's been a huge help to me to have a curriculum like that. So
Chase?
You know, starting in youth ministry or preaching in general, I think the hardest thing is feeling like you're cheating the people if it's not yours. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest deception in the church today, is because you should always have multiple influences. Yes. And just like what we have here, represented here, you should always have multiple voices, multiple influences, and you'll know God's voice. I mean, it's that small, still voice that you can't shake. It's that message that keeps coming up time and time again throughout the week, and you say, I know that's God. And I think sometimes we try to limit it to where it has to be us. It has to be our voice. It has to be our message, our interpretation. And I've seen them a lot of times to where that down the road can really set into a little bit of pride. Is you feel like it's all on you. The pressure's all on me. I have to do it. And, you know, the wonderful thing about these ministries represented is we have leaders behind us and team behind us and everything. And we really just have to take those voices like Jeannie Mayo, Stephen Furtick, you know, when he was youth pastor, John Gray, and listen to those messages, digest them, go to our quiet place. God, what are you speaking to me right now? Because he always speaks. You just have to find that small, still voice that always speaks. This is your environment. This is where I'm leading this week. And
I know. I know. I talked with you about it. I think I mentioned it to you the last time that we had met, was that when I first started, and you know, I asked, you know, our senior pastor about the possibility of using curriculum. What does that look like? Did he expect me, you know, to write all of my messages every week? And he was like, no, you find a good a good curriculum that you like, then go for it, and because it's going to help you. And so I did, and we found Grow, and I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with the model that they provide, the software that they provide, and just all of the details of game activity ideas and stage design and things like that. But even still, I was a few months in, and I was still like having an internal battle with am I just taking the easy way out? I knew that I was still, because you have to study, though, even the curriculum, like you have to study it to know what you're talking about. And so, but even then I was having like an internal battle with am I taking the easy way out and just using this as an excuse because I have all this other stuff going on. And then I met with Pastor Marty Darricott, and we met for the first time. We were having coffee, and I had never mentioned to anybody that I was kind of having this like internal battle with me about it. And we were just sitting there talking, and the concept of curriculum came up, and he just, without me saying anything, without me prepping him for anything, he was just, he made the statement, I wish that when I was a youth pastor starting out, that I had a really good, strong base curriculum to go off of. He said that way I spent more time trying to connect with my kids and my students and making those connections rather than was I, writing the best hard-hitting sermon every week. And so immediately when he said that, I just felt like, because I had been asking God, give me a sign, give me a sign to know that I'm not just taking the easy way out, because I'm still trying, I'm still studying, and these are really good, this really good curriculum. My students are really taken away from it, but I'm having this internal, battle. And as soon as he said that, I could have just broke right there in the coffee shop, because he had no idea that I was feeling that way. And so that was just confirmation for me to know that even though, my senior leadership had approved it, even though I felt really good about it, to begin with, that internal battle, that wasn't me. That was the enemy just trying to, again, because I was new and I was trying to figure out, my way through things. And so that really helped me out a lot, and he had no idea. And so, yeah, I strongly believe, like, if you've got a really good, strong curriculum that you can use, like, use it, benefit from it, because like Courtney said, you can take it and make it your own. It gives you the ability, the kind that we use, gives you the software where you can edit, add, delete everything that you want. And so it's been really good. It's been really good for our students here at the Central Campus. They're taking away a lot from it. They love, the new stage design that they give us ideas for every month. They look forward to it. So it's been pretty good for us. So I don't know, does anybody else have any?
Yeah, I'll throw in my input because I feel like I can relate to, most of us up here, is that when I first started, it was me writing my own curriculum all the time. And I really had to check myself and realize, that the word, preparation came in, into mind. And I realized that, it was almost a hindrance because, again, with, having another full-time job, it was maybe Sunday before I received what God wanted me to speak about. So, it was 3 days of praying, God, what is the message this week? What do you have, for me to deliver to these students? And now I've actually switched over to using a curriculum as well. And I feel like it's been a really good change for me. It was something I really wasn't on board with at first. I was kind of the same way. I felt like that, I would just be cheating my students because I'm just, taking somebody else's stuff. But it has, it's been a good thing, I believe. And again, I've felt a lot more prepared, and I feel like I've been able to give more to my students because I'm able to start, Wednesday night, the next day, I'm prepping for the next week already. And I'm able to take that message or take that idea and begin to pray about it and begin to say, okay, God, what in this message do I really want to bring out? What do I really want to focus on? And so it's really helped my preparation for Wednesday nights. So
that's good. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about worship, and more specifically youth worship and what that looks like in our weekly services. So, do you do youth-led worship? Do you have your youth that lead worship? Do you have adults that come in and do that for you? Like, what does that look like for you? I know we have here at Central, and I know at South too. Like you guys, we have mostly our youth that lead worship, and then that do the instruments, and they come in for rehearsal each week. But like Ryan, what do you guys do over at the Edge?
So we actually kind of shifted things a little bit. So we do have an adult that comes in. We had a couple of teenagers that was partnering to do that and make that happen, and it wasn't working. So we are, in many ways, we're a brand new church, so we're a brand new youth ministry. I think that they had been so exposed to the big band and all of those things, the lights and the smoke and all that. Not that those things are bad elements, but they had been so exposed to it, it became very normal for them. And so Jenny Atkins is actually our worship leader. And she came in one day and she said, Ryan, I'm going to do things different. I'm not going to stand on the stage. I'm going to sit on the edge of the stage, and we're just going to be real and raw. And the kids responded to it. Now they sit up in the altar and they sing along and worship that way. We actually talked to them and asked them, do you want us to kind of go back to the full band and the stage and all those different things? We gave them the option, and they said, please no. Yeah. We love having that intimate moment where there's no pressure. Yeah. There's no I hate to use the word, but there's no showiness to it. And it's just that real, raw, we're all on the same level at that moment. Yeah. And so our worship has definitely shifted and changed. And we've listened to our kids and our students about how do they want to experience that? What does that look like for them and their generation? It's not the same generation as mine or your generation was. What worked for me won't work for them. And so it took some learning and some experience and some kind of testing the waters a little bit. But now we're in a very interesting flow. Yeah. And it's cool to see every week they look forward to actually coming down and worshiping now. It's completely different. I want to get back to kind of your youth group specifically, just because I've noticed some things on social media. But as far as like your youth leading worship, like if you have youth that lead worship, do you hold them to the standard of a leadership role, or are they? I mean, because a lot of times you might see some youth groups that have youth led worship, and that's what they do, and that's just it. I know specifically here, like they're held to a leadership role. They have certain standards that that they have to meet, just like if they were on the main stage here, in the main service. And so, so I don't know. Like, do you guys do contracts with your youth led worship team, or do you just kind of are you making sure you're keeping them in check with certain things? Like, what does that look like for you guys, Pastor Eber?
So yeah, we have a mixture of like young adults and actual students. That most of our people on our worship team are at least seniors, though. And it wasn't a rule. It just kind of organically and naturally happened that way. And so and we have a few selected students in our ministry overall that we've kind of selected them to kind of place a higher standard, but because they have the potential. So and then we've kind of we've had conversations with them. If you want the pressure, we'll pressure you and push you. If you don't want it, it's fine. But that that power will come with some responsibility. And even as our worship kind of, even to go back into that, it varies. And I think student ministry, we have to understand our God-given design. And so I love that. There's times that we've done a raw worship, just very acoustic, and there's times that we're full all band, and we try to all out conference worship. And so I've learned, I think one of the biggest things as student ministers, we deal a lot with comparison. Everybody in all the ministries, but that's kind of is a trend. And so I think we have to understand our design. Earlier with preachings, sometimes I wish I would have had a curriculum. Sometimes, so I think we have to understand that in student ministry with worship and even with those leaders, understand our design. And I don't think there is a set path. And I was thinking, as you guys shared about worship and even preaching, I'm like, even when we think we wrote our own preaching, most likely somebody already said it. Yeah. We are, I'm sorry to say, but we're not that innovative at this point in life. Somebody has already shared that word. Somebody has already done worship that way. So it always comes down to the design and the calling in that area, in that region. And so I would say, even in our leaders, so we've tried to understand their context, their design. And so I wouldn't say I've mapped out a contract, but I've tried so I've assigned leaders specifically that I think will work with them. And I tell them, hey, if it's not working out, you got to tell me, because I can't allow that person to take a step back in their responsibility. So that's kind of how we go about it, very organically, as natural as we can.
That's good. Well, so we're going to switch gears again. Let's talk about social media and what that looks like for our youth. And like I mentioned earlier, so I want to start with Ryan. The first time we sat down, you were kind of still new in your position and where you were at the edge, and just, you guys it was a young youth group. It was very small, and I have been watching on social media, and like your Wednesday night services are absolutely just like blowing up. Like it's just every week I see like more kids like in your posts on Facebook than what you had started out with just a few months ago. And so like, give any youth pastor that might be watching right now, like what is some insight? Like what have you been doing to get those kids involved and actually want to come back every week?
Sure. I learned very early on, I learned a lot of things from Pastor Marty. I know we've already mentioned him. I learned from him very early on that there's two different types of youth pastors in a lot of ways. There are those that go after the heart and they're genuine. And I believe, and I'm sure you all would agree, kids can tell when you're genuine. They can tell when you're real. They can tell when you really care about them versus you're just trying to get some numbers to check a box. And so with our kids, our model is fun, family, faith. We play the crazy games. We have a ton of fun. We are a family. We're in this together. It's not about me or anything that I can do. All glory to God, absolutely. And then faith is the core of everything we do. If at the end of the night, if we're not centered around Jesus, then we're not doing our job. But I just want to encourage, if there is a youth pastor that's watching, if you have low numbers, it's okay. Love that group. Own that group. Take them out for coffee. Take them to the movies. Spend time with them. That's the key right there. It's the genuineness. They need a relationship. And I'll speak a little bit about my group. A lot of our kids, they don't have dads. They don't have that parental figure that's so vital and so important. And I think we could really say that about this generation and even some of our generation. It is a fatherless generation. And so they need that connection. It's wonderful. I love the big conferences, and I love it. It's incredible. I'm all about it. And we do those things. We do the stage. We do the lights. We do all that. But we have to, at some point, come off the stage. And I think you guys would all agree that you've probably had those experiences. We have to come off that stage and just be real. And they don't want to be talked down to. They're a person. And so I think that's the difference, is that we're just real and raw with them. And we love on them, and we're honest. And, if I'm going through something, and I know there's certain things maybe we can't share with our kids exactly, but I'll tell them, hey, I had a rough week this week. I'm not perfect. I'm not Jesus. I'm trying to point you to them. And so I think that they love that. They respect that. I think that's the difference from the millennial generation that has now graduated through. And now we have this generation. They grew up with the big fancy church. And again, I'm not saying any of that's wrong at all. But they grew up with it. And so it became so common. And so now I kind of feel like we're going not backwards, but we're getting back to our roots as a church where it's about real, genuine discipleship. That's what Pastor Marty taught me for 7 years is discipleship. It's that 101, hey, let's go get coffee today. And just take off the mask for a few minutes. And yes, we're going to have that time where we preach and teach to them and worship from the stage and those things. But I think that that's the big difference.
Yeah, and I think too that it should be the easiest thing, but I think the hardest thing that we deal with as youth pastors is social media probably, and the influence that it has on our kids, because we can do all those things with them, but then what are they going back home to when they're scrolling through their news feeds and stuff like that? So what specifically for your youth ministry in general, Mason, what do you guys like? What platforms are you using on social media?
Yeah, so we try to be really involved in Instagram. That's kind of, I feel like the big player where you have, the most influence. I know our kids use a lot of TikTok, but I'll be honest with you, to me sometimes it's a struggle because I'm not a big social media person. I struggle with it because I just, sometimes it's just finding the time to post or to, be relevant on there. So I've kind of handed that off to my leadership team. But, we try to be relevant on Instagram. Sometimes Facebook, depending on, and then of course another big aspect of social media is, connecting with the parents of our youth. And so we use a couple different outlets. We use, to send out emails and just keep people updated. And then as far as, just straight communication, I try to use GroupMe. That's the thing I kind of use just to keep us all in a group. And, whether I get interaction or not, I know that the kids see it. And things like that, but definitely trying to do, the Instagram, and that's really the big player for sure.
Content is so important these days, and like what you're putting out there for your kids to see, because we've got to constantly keep up with, what's trendy now and what is going to catch their eye that's going to make them stop, read this post, share it, or whatever. So so Chase, like, what kind of content are you putting out there? And when I talk about content, like, are you using, or are all of your posts like strictly service related and event related, or how does that look for you guys?
Yeah, so we like to really stay with the service mentality for the most part. Of course, change is always good, keeping it fresh and relevant and everything like that. But for the most part, we want to capture them and take them back to what they encountered throughout the week. Because unfortunately, we have about 7 seconds. In all reality, we have about 7 seconds before they go, we're just not interested. Swipe next. So you really want to put something in front of them without pressure. If I could say anything, without pressure, you want to put something in front of them that takes them back to that moment, takes them back to that encounter, and they say, you know what? Wednesday night was awesome. Sunday night was awesome. What happened? And it really keeps them mentally focused on where they should be. And I think a lot of times we put so much pressure on ourselves. If it has to be the trendy thing, it has to be the thing that's on the top 10 list, and climbing, but it's really not about that. It's just take them back to that moment, where they were in the altar, put that picture up there so, you don't have to remind them. They remind themselves when they see it, and they say, you know what, I need to be back at that place.
Well, and of course, like I said, we'll talk about COVID-19 coming up soon, but what has helped us, especially during this time, but what we've recently started doing even before this pandemic happened, was that we started making posts like during the week where that would just something random. Like we did one the other day that was, what's your least favorite subject in school? Comment below. And that gets them to comment and it gets them engaged, where it's just something, it's just random. You know what I mean? But it lets them know that we still see you. We still want to be a part of your news feed and what you're scrolling past or whatever. And and stuff like little stuff like that. Like you don't think that is making, anything, but then they'll come and talk about it. You know what I mean? And they'll talk about their least favorite school subject. And it's the most random things, but it gets them involved. It gets them talking. It keeps them connected to you, obviously, especially, with what we're dealing with right now. So as far as outside of Wednesday nights, and like you're talking about bringing them back to that Wednesday night. So outside of that, other than your Wednesdays and Sundays, like what kind of events? We're going to talk about events, youth events. What kind of events are you guys doing? What does that look like for you on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, like that type of thing? So, Chase, what are you guys doing right now?
Yeah, so we did have each of our small groups start planning out an event to do together. A lot of times, being a part-time, having a full-time job, you feel like you're running all the time. So, that leadership beneath you, is so important, and pour into it, because it frees you up to do what you have to do. But we had an event where one of our small groups was going to go to Main Event and just hang out, because really I think a lot of what they didn't teach you in Bible college is love is really spelled Time. And it's making that one-on-one intentional connection. So we'll do the intentional events like go to Main Event or do a lock-in or something like that, to where it gives them that time to really open up. I'm comfortable. I'm just not here for 1 hour a week. I'm comfortable. I know these guys. I really want to open up, and that's really what it's about. So, like to answer your question, we'll do stuff like Main Events, go bowling, something like that, just to really have that chance to connect with them.
I know we try to do at least one kind of big event each month that kind of gets the kids engaged, has them inviting their friends, and that way too, we let their friends see that we're real people, and that we like to have fun. We're not just gonna, preach the Bible down your throat on Wednesday nights, but that we just want to have fun with you. You know what I mean? And then hopefully that gets them interested and want to come in and see what our services are about on Wednesdays. So, but I can tell you firsthand that not all of our big events go as planned. And so, I just, we said we want to take this time just to kind of be, raw and open and vulnerable. So, does anybody have, a failed event, something that just went absolutely horribly wrong, that didn't work out the way they thought it was going to be, that they want to share?
Yeah. So, we had a big event coming up, our Catalyst event coming up, and a lot of the kids wanted to raise money, and we decided we were going to do a prayer hike. And over here at Sawney Mountain, so we get in one of our youth vans, and the van broke down about halfway there. And of course, you know, I had the girl van, just full of girls, and you know, I had someone with me, a leader with me, a female leader with me, and of course, the van just decides that you know, it's just going to quit there on the side of the road. So you know, me just freshly stepping into this role over here at this church, you know, I'm sweating bullets. And of course, with a van full of girls, you know, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to freak out. They're going to call their parents and say that this is the worst youth pastor ever. You know, he let us break down on the side of the road and everything else. But you know, you get them talking about things like The Bachelor and what's going on, and you know, then they completely forget. Yeah. But yeah, it was really interesting because the van just completely decided to break down. Thank goodness we had our middle school pastor with us, and completely saved the day. But it was truly funny. I mean, it was like the worst case scenario for our youth at that time. So
I don't know. I think worst case scenario is 0 students show up. Listen, my like second or third month into this position, and we planned a big Six Flags trip. And literally the Wednesday before, when all the money is due, like nobody was going. Absolutely 0 students were going. And I mean, I later found out that I was still the new guy, and so parents still had to find trust in me to go off somewhere with their kids, and which I totally understood. Like I'm not going to be upset about that. Like you want to make sure that you trust the person that's taking your kid off somewhere. It's fine because we rescheduled it a few months later, and I had probably 40 kids go. So like it worked out in the end. But at the time I was like, oh, this is not good. Like 0 students, and a lot of times it's not just the students, but it's their parents, because the parents have a say in the way that you minister their kids as well. And if they don't trust you, if they don't, you have to build that trust with the parents as well. Even to simply take them down, for us, right down the road to Six Flags. So anybody.
That's all for part 1. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you were able to get something out of that. Be sure to check in next week. Make sure you catch part 2. See ya.